Benjamin Orr was the co-founder, co-lead singer and bassist for the platinum singing rock band The Cars, often considered the band's heartthrob. Orr possessed an incredible voice, diverse musical talent, and a rare stage presence, all balanced by an enigmatic personality and a relentless determination to reach rock stardom, selling over 30 million albums worldwide with 15 Billboard Top 40 hits. The Cars certainly achieved success, but within a decade of the debut album, Orr found himself adrift and without a band. Veteran music journalist Joe Milliken draws together interviews with over 120 family members, friends, bandmates, and music associates from Orr's life. The book's called Let's Go. Benjamin Orr and the Cars delighted to be joining me live on the line from the US. Joe Milliken. Joe, good morning to you, I suppose.
It is morning for me. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. Whereabouts in the States do we find you today? West Coast, East Coast, somewhere in between?
I'm on the East Coast in Vermont, about 2.5 hours north of Boston.
Absolutely gorgeous. Right then, Benjamin Orr, band's heartthrob, a single-minded musical genius who pursued rock stardom. Fair enough?
Oh, that's fair enough for sure. Ben was a lifelong musician, and he knew what he wanted to do early in life, and it's all he ever wanted to do was be a rock star, and he certainly achieved it.
So tell me a little bit about his background then, because the Cars are a band, I suppose many people will know them from songs like, that classic 80s monster hit Drive, but they were, as that first track I played proves, that, they came out of the new wave scene that included maybe sort of East Coast Blondie, Talking Heads, that sort of gang.
Yeah, they're considered, I guess they're considered a classic rock band, although they've been called a lot of things over the years. They've been labeled as a rock band, a pop band, maybe a punk band too. But I like to consider them a classic rock band myself, for sure.
And where did Benjamin come from? Where did Ben come from? And how was his? Because he obviously didn't spring fully formed into the Cars. What were his influences? What bands did he join before and how did he come to become a founder member of the Cars?
Well, Ben is originally from Cleveland, which is the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he was in a lot of rock bands early on in his life, based in Cleveland, and he met Rick Ocasek, what you would call leader of the band, I guess, and they met early in life, joined a band together, and they actually they logged a lot of miles together before they ever made it to Boston and made famous as the Cars. So Ben's originally from Cleveland, and him and Rick found their way to Boston in the early 70s, and that's where they finally got their record deal.
And I suppose one of the things about putting in the hard miles and playing in the small bars and the juke joints and all that sort of thing is the fact that they became a very, very tight band.
Oh yeah, once they got to Boston, they played any club, theater they could get, and they were actually in a band called Captain Swing before they became the Cars. So it definitely wasn't something that happened overnight for them. Like I said, they logged a lot of miles along the way before they actually got their record deal. But Boston is where they ended up, and Boston's where they got the record deal. So a lot of people consider them a Boston band, even though, like I said, Ben's originally from Cleveland.
And what was the big breakthrough then? Was it almost immediate as soon as they got the record deal? They had just what I needed and they were off, or did it take a little time? And did the album come first and then the single Just What I Needed come later on?
Well, they actually when Rick wrote the songs for the first album, they actually had a record DJ from WBCN in Boston, a big FM radio station in Boston, and a DJ happened to hear their songs, saw them do a show, and really liked it, and started playing one of their songs on the radio. So that's actually kind of how they started to get their record deal. So they actually had a couple of songs on the radio before they even got their record deal. And so that's kind of how that happened.
It's kind of that thing, isn't it, where it's an underground, which you don't get so much these days, I don't think, really, even with the internet and stuff, and people start putting stuff on YouTube. But that following, when you get picked up by a radio station and played and played and played.
Yeah, it's really cool that it happened that way. And as a matter of fact, when you look at tip sheets at a radio station, next to the band and the song, it'll actually say, what their record label is. And the funny thing about the Cars is they didn't have a record label yet. So when you looked at a tip sheet at the radio station for the Cars, it actually just said tape next to it, because all it really was a tape of the song that got sent to the radio station. So it's really unique that they actually had a hit song on the radio before they ever got their record deal, and that actually helped them spring to get a record deal.
And I mean,
so it was a unique situation.
Well, I mean, we talk about Ben being driven and being single-minded in this pursuit of fame and fortune. A lot of people go into the music business and they're driven by fame, wanting to be at the top of the game and wanting to get to the top of that, be recognized and write great songs. What do you think sets him apart then? Was it the way he approached what he was doing? Was it, was he 24/7 just, the hardest working man in show business? How did it all play out for him?
Well, like I had mentioned, when Ben was young, he knew from the very beginning in life what he wanted to do. And he actually quit school as a sophomore in high school to pursue his music career. And he actually had the blessing from his parents. So from the age of 13, he knew what he wanted to do. And he was in rock bands from an early age. And one of his bands in Cleveland, called the Grasshoppers, was one of the hottest bands in Cleveland. And there was actually a music television show based in Cleveland called Upbeat, and it was sort of the American Bandstand of Cleveland, if you will. And his band was the house band on this TV show. So here's this 17-year-old kid who quit school to be a rock musician, and he's 17 years old, and his band is already on a TV show. So Ben was kind of a rock star in Cleveland from an early age, and I actually interviewed a couple of his friends from back then, and he actually had a nickname. He was kind of the Elvis of Cleveland, if you will, in the early 60s. So, pretty unique situation that such a young kid at such a young age was already kind of getting a taste of fame, and that was a good 10 years before the Cars even made it. So he kind of had his whole other life early on as a rock star. Unique situation.
The Elvis of Cleveland. I mean, that's I've never heard that one before, but you should get a T-shirt with that made, shouldn't you?
You're right, though. It's definitely a unique situation, and for somebody to get a taste of fame, if you will, at such a young age, definitely gave him the taste for it, and he definitely had a single-minded drive to make it as a rock star, and he sure enough made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at it though, it's a shame that he's no longer with us, or he was, because if he was, I mean, he was a good-looking guy, and you can see he's got that rock star look and the rock star hair, and you can see why that he became so massively popular.
Yeah, he definitely had that. He was the heartthrob of the band. He had that rock star personality for sure. But a unique thing about Ben that I learned, obviously, because Ben passed away at such a young age, I didn't get a chance to interview him myself, so I had to interview as many people who knew him as I could. And I learned about Ben that he was actually off stage, he was quite quiet and shy, believe it or not. And I kind of describe it as he used to flip a switch to go on stage to be a rock star, and then when he would come off stage, he'd flip that switch back off and just become a normal guy. So he actually kind of shied away from the spotlight when he wasn't on stage. So I think that's a pretty a unique thing about him, for sure.
And the other thing is the fact, because he was a multi-instrumentalist, and this is, I'm not having a go at any bass players, because some of my best friends are bass players, and they'll beat me up next time I see them. But you don't normally think of many bass players as being singers or writing the songs. And with Ben and Rick, it really was sort of, it was it was a collaborative effort.
Oh, absolutely. And Ben actually is quite the multi-instrumentalist. He started off actually as a drummer. He was taking drum lessons like when he was 10 years old, and his first band ever, he was a drummer. And then when he moved and became a member of the Grasshoppers, he played rhythm guitar. And then he'd actually become a full-time bassist until he filled that role in the Cars. So Ben was really a multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist, and played whatever instrument his band needed him to do. That's what he did. So he was a drummer, a guitar player, and a bass player. So he was a pretty unique and talented individual. And of course, the rock star voice goes without saying. I mean, to me, he's one of the truly iconic rock singers. To me, I mean, he's right up there with, Paul McCartney and David Bowie and Paul Rogers of Bad Company. I think Ben's rock and roll voice is just an iconic thing, and he's one of the great rock singers there ever was, I feel.
That's exalted company to be in. Now, Ben died of pancreatic cancer, and was it around about 2000, was it?
Yes, he was diagnosed in 1999. Unfortunately, it's a tough disease, pancreatic cancer, and he only lasted about a year after he was diagnosed. So he died at the age of 53, and yes, it was in 2000 when he passed away, unfortunately.
So, I mean, obviously you couldn't speak, you didn't have the chance to interview him yourself, but you spoke with other band members, you spoke with people who worked with him in the early years. What are their recollections of Ben? I mean, it sounds like he was, he didn't live, if you like, a rock and roll lifestyle. You just said he switched on and switched off when he came on stage, but what are their memories of him? What was he like as a person that you managed to get to ascertain?
A common thread that I learned through interviewing a lot of these people was that Ben was not only just a quiet guy, but he was a very loyal guy, too. He was hard to get to know, but once you did get to know him and he trusted you and became your friend, he was your friend for life. I interviewed a couple of his bandmates from when he was young in Cleveland, and they told me that, Ben never forgot where he came from. Even after the Cars became famous, and he's a world-famous rock star, whenever the Cars were going to go through his hometown of Cleveland, he used to call his buddies up on the phone and say, "Hey, get ready, I'm coming to town." And Ben would get back a hold of all of his friends. He'd get them concert tickets, backstage passes, limousine rides to the show. He wouldn't let any of his friends spend a dime. So Ben was a very loyal guy, and even after he became world famous, he never forgot his roots and never forgot where he came from. And I think that was a pretty unique thing about somebody who became so famous, that he never forgot his roots and always remembered his friends, and never forgot where he came from.
And another thing, and this is perhaps one of the reasons that the Cars continue to have a relevance today. I mean, is it this year they've been indicted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
That's true. Yep, they got inducted this past April to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was lucky enough to attend the ceremony, and I saw the band get inducted. And of course, it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland, which is Ben's hometown. And ironically enough, I did some investigating, and I've learned that Ben was actually the first native Clevelander to ever be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I went to Cleveland for the ceremony, and it was really a great thing to to see all of Ben's hard work finally come to fruition as his band getting inducted into the Rock Hall. Of course, it's sad that he couldn't be there himself to accept his awards, but it was definitely cool that he finally made it to the Rock Hall.
The ultimate local boy makes good story, huh?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When I went to Cleveland, I had fans coming up to me and strangers, saying, "Oh, you wrote the book about Ben," and giving me hugs. So it was a pretty amazing experience for me to go there and be able to see the band get inducted. It was definitely a cool experience and something I'll never forget, for sure.
And what was it like putting the book together and going through, meeting some of his childhood friends and the guys who work with him, but also going through these pictures you put in the book which haven't been published before as well, and all the concerts and all the albums and stuff like that, to go back and revisit all of that great music. That must have been a great thing to do.
It was definitely an amazing experience, for sure. And I had mentioned before that Ben was a very private guy. So when I actually started contacting people to interview about the book, some of them were a little bit reluctant, maybe, to talk to me just because they knew Ben was such a loyal guy. So in some cases, I had to convince people and gain their trust in order for them to talk to me about Ben. And in some cases, I actually would take their quotes that I'd get out of our interview, and I'd have to send them the quotes so they could read them over and make sure that they liked what I was writing. So the interview process was definitely long and painstaking, but definitely worth the work. It was truly a great experience to be able to talk to so many people that knew Ben. I mean, I talked to, not just childhood friends, but I talked to record executives, other bandmates, rock and roll photographers, and people in the media. I talked to, the significant women in his life. Ben was married twice, so I got to talk to the significant women in his life, too. So it was quite an interesting experience to talk to all of these different people that Ben was associated with along the way.
And there's a great quote, which is from Jeff Calisi, who said, when Ben got out of the hospital bed, he said, "When I fall down and can't pick myself up, we'll know it's over. Until then, we rock." Well, he certainly did that.
Oh yeah, Ben was a tough guy, for sure. And when he was with the band Big People at the end of his life, when he was diagnosed, they already had a tour booked. The band was doing a tour opening up for the rock band Styx. And when he was diagnosed, they kind of thought it was over, as in, okay, we're going to cancel this tour, and it's over now. But Ben said, no way. He says, I'm going to rock until the day I die, and we're doing these shows. And they went on tour and did all the shows that they said they were going to do, and Ben truly did what he wanted to do for his whole life. And so he saw it through. They went on tour and they did all these shows. And I mean, he literally was on stage doing his last show a month before he passed away. So he was, very weak at the end, but he was still gathering up that will and that personality to go out on stage and perform and do what he loved to do until the very end of his life.
When I do these shows, when I do these interviews with people who've written books about rock stars and people in the music business, the whole thing, normally I get to do with somebody, and they would say, well, he had his demons, but underneath, he was a great guy in the whole thing. But what strikes me about Ben is the fact that, from what you've told me this afternoon, he just strikes me as a regular, great stand-up guy who's never forgot where he came from and put out some great music. And what finer tribute than that?
You're right. I don't think he was your typical rock star. I think a lot of rock stars maybe get caught up in their fame and fortune and think about it like maybe get a little bit of selfish and get the idea of feeling that it's all about me. But Ben wasn't like that at all. He was a really private and caring person. And like I said, he was very loyal and never forgot his friends. And he was a different kind of rock star, I think. You know, like I mentioned before about flipping the switch when he went on stage. And when he came off stage, he was just a regular guy like you and me. So I think that was a very unique aspect about Ben, that he wasn't, you know, selfish and always wanting to be in the spotlight. He was quite the opposite off stage. So I think that is a very unique quality about Ben and what made him such an interesting and unique person. For sure.
The book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. It's out now on Roman and Littlefield Publishers. It's by Joe Milliken. Joe, if people want to find out more about you or about the book, I know you can download it in various forms and it will be available on our website as a download as well. But where can they find out more about you and about the book? Is there a website? Is there social media?
Yep, there's definitely I have a Facebook page that's dedicated to the book, so you can find it there. And my public relations coordinator, Donna, and I created a website for the book. And it's real simple. It's www.benorbook.com. You can go to the website and tell us a little bit about me, a couple little stories about Ben. There's some photos there. So people can go to benorbook.com and order the book there, and that's probably the easiest way to learn more about the book.
I will be heading that way after this show. The book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. It's by Joe Milliken. Joe, after you're doing this one, what's next in your sights? Because you've written a few books before.
Well, this is my first attempt at a book, and I've been a published writer for about 20 years, but it's all been newspapers and magazines, but I consider myself a music journalist first, and I also publish my own website, a music-related website called Standing Room Only, so I also do the website as well, and I do plan on doing another book. I have a short list of ideas in the works. I haven't made a final decision yet, although I do know it'll be music related. So I'm going to be promoting this book for the next couple of months. I'm going to be doing an author event in Ben's hometown of Cleveland in January, and then I'm going to try to do another local event in Boston where the Cars were so big. And so I'm going to be promoting the book for a couple of months, and then in the spring I'm going to take a look at my short list of ideas and start working on a second book.
Sounds like you're in for a great couple of months promoting the book. The book is called Let's Go, Benjamin Orr and the Cars. It's by Joe Milliken. Joe, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the attention. And like I said, if you're a Cars fan or a fan of rock music in general, go to benorbook.com and check out my book. And I really appreciate you having me on today and letting me talk a little bit about Ben. He was a great, loyal man and truly iconic rock star. And it's really an honor for me to be able to tell his story to the world. And I really appreciate you having me on today. I can't thank you enough.
The pleasure has been all mine.
TRE.